And you just touched on another thing that I think lines up very well with the corporate responsibility, and that's our kids preparing to go back to school. It is my opinion, and I don't know if it's popular opinion or not, that um, corporations should take a more active role in providing certain partnerships, public-private partnerships, whereas we it is my opinion again that schools can't afford all of the resources that we want to put into our education system. But by partnering with local corporations and nonprofits, we can pool our resources to create a better educational platform for our kids. And particularly coming after COVID, where there's a question that's being asked, and this is very sensitive. Those people that can afford alternative education solutions can put their kids and keep their kids safe. And those families that cannot afford those alternatives, or they can't afford to miss a day of work because they have to make the money to provide, that means that they're going to take their kids and send them to school because they don't have any other options. So what winds up happening is it's not divided along racial lines, but it's definitely divided along the lines of haves and have-nots. And if you have options and you have solutions. But if you have not, you're forced into an unsafe solution. Um, I think that's one of the challenges of what we're facing in our kids going back to school. Your
I
thoughts?
I think you're right. It is definitely not you can look at it from race, you can look at it from economics. I mean, at the end of the day, if you cannot afford an iPad or you cannot afford a internet connection that's going to be quality enough that the teacher can look, can interact with you, it's a problem.
Right.
We had a meeting yesterday with family people who had school age children here at the dealership to talk about, look, we don't know what August is going to look like yet. We want, you're an important part of our team. What do we need to do to try to help you with your children during that time period? Now,
Right.
It's not something you're going to do all the time, but you have to be looking at that. And I think you're right. But when you start to go even further in this situation, though, I think that the COVID has opened up a huge opportunity.
Yes.
Distance learning, the ability to use technology, things that people would have thought were taboo, third rail, not going to touch, they've had to, and they've had to embrace it. And I think that's where corporations can really get involved. It's how do we get those kids to an internet hub or a learning hub? The part that scares me the most, though, about that, when you touch on that, is we look at things that are taboo again. Mm-hmm. And we worry about what's the state of the public school system going to be if we start to let some of these things happen. Charter schools were, oh my gosh, if we did a charter school, that's the death of public schools. And they found that it makes them better. That competition, and it's not competition per se, but relieving the pressure of certain kids going certain places has improved it. So I'm hoping that this gives us an opportunity to look past all of our, walls that we've built up, and we can go past it. I hope that answers your question.
No, it absolutely does. You touched on some great points right there. And one of them particularly is the modernization of education. When you look at our classroom model, it's a very early model that hasn't been updated for a long, long time. And the fact that with the amount of technology that we have, there are just so many things that we could be doing if we'd, take that step. And I think that COVID, while as harsh and as damaging as it is, it does present those opportunities for us to grow. And I was just talking to my executive director for my nonprofit this morning, Mr. Jonathan Shores, and we were having that conversation that this could be the forcing mechanism to change what school looks like going forward, not just for the next year or whatever, but going forward. And in that conversation, I remember BOCES and trade schools and all these areas where kids had options of where to go get their education. If they knew they weren't going off to college one day, they can go pick up a trade and they can get to work and they can start doing things. I mean, Those are things that have gradually disappeared over the years for whatever reason. And I don't see why it's not something that we could do now, whether you're talking about cybersecurity and IT or plumbing and carpentry. It really doesn't matter. We can get them involved and get them working and moving towards something a lot faster.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that point up. Education is always going to be the great equalizer in the world. Trade schools is an excellent topic, though. When we look in the political realm, the way that we judge education becomes how many kids go to college.
Yep.
Some of them just, and I went to school, and I remember I had 4 roommates my freshman year, and I'm the only one that graduated from that room. It wasn't for all of them.
Right. Exactly.
So we have to start looking at not necessarily are they going to college, but are they being trained for the ability to be in the modern workplace, in the modern life?
Right.
And I had a great interview yesterday with Stephen Fishwick, who's an artist, and art is going away from the public schools. How do you take away art? Art is where creativity begins, which starts to lead to other things. And then you look at VOTEC. That needs to be, those options need to be there. But then it goes into, we talked before, commerce and financial freedom. If people don't understand that, those are the things we can bring into the school system to set our children up for a better life. And that's an opportunity that I think we have. So I think that there's a lot to discuss in adding technology. I don't think it replaces the modern teacher. I think teachers are phenomenal people. They're the best salespeople in the world. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for a slew of great teachers. This is a time not to be scared.
I agree.
This is a time to put everything on the table and say, look, if we had to recreate this model and money wasn't an object and technology wasn't an object, and we just looked at it, how can we effectively use our resources? That's the part we should start the argument from, and then we can build into, okay, we've got to do this and do this. I think people need to be more excited about it. And I'm sorry for interrupting, but it just,
look,
what you said that was important to look at. Let's be excited. Let's find it. And maybe COVID, that's the benefit of COVID. We've all decided to say, I got no idea. Let's just try something.
Every crisis provides an opportunity if we're willing to look for the opportunity.